Gonna want it. Gonna want it. Gonna want it. Gonna want it.
Being brighter, lasting longer, staying lighter, growing stronger.
The way we're living today, still gonna want bottle.
Calcium,
Bottle.
vitamins,
Bottle.
protein.
Bottle. Gonna want bottle. Gonna want bottle. Gonna want.
Joie de vivre, the unique fragrance of France. Joie de vivre, fresh as an April morning in Paris. Flirtatious as only the French can be. Joie de vivre by Lanthric, daringly unconventional. Vivacious and lively. The true spirit of France. Joie de vivre by Lanthric.
Welcome, listeners of Evolution, to Temporal Discussion, the episode-by-episode Nightmare Retrospective podcast. I'm Martin Harder, and warning, extreme danger to life force, put it down quickly!
And I'm Martin O'Doney, and everything's fine.
Well, I just found this random bottle on the table and thought I'd open it.
Spoiler alert, everybody! Rather late in the day, as usual.
Today we'll be looking at Series 2, Episode 12. It was first broadcast on Monday the 21st of November 1988. The number one single was still the unbelievably generic First Time by Robin Beck, and the number one movie was Tucker, the Man and His Dream.
1946. Preston Tucker and his family began to build the car of the future.
Today.
Is there anything you want to explain first about the dogs?
Well, I traded the old Packer for him.
They would challenge the automotive giants in Detroit.
Is there anybody in this room who can look me in the eye and tell me we can't do it?
Building a car in your barn is one thing, but mass production, that's something else.
It's the idea that counts, and the dream.
It was almost too good to be true.
Detroit. They're putting the squeeze on. We can't buy steel, we can't buy anything. So I made an appointment with Senator Ferguson.
What do you think? A big smile and a pat on the back is going to make him forget he's a senator from Detroit?
Quite an idea of yours, selling dealerships for cars that don't exist.
What'd he say?
He said stay out of the car business.
It's got Jeff Bridges in the title role. It was directed by Francis Ford Coppola. It was nominated for 3 Oscars, including Best Supporting Actor for Martin Landau, won 8 other awards, and was nominated for 9 more. So, of course, in temporal discussion tradition, I haven't seen it.
And I haven't either.
Looking at the subject matter, it just doesn't seem like the kind of film I'd be interested in.
Well, there we are. I don't think I would either.
So before we get into the episode, you'll remember a few weeks ago we asked you to record and send in your answers to this riddle.
On Monday, I planted a magic tree. On Tuesday, it grew twice its height. Each day, it doubled. On Sunday, it was fully grown. But when? On which day was it half grown?
So we received several answers, only 2 of which were correct. We'll play the wrong answers first, and let's be honest, we really should have expected this.
Is it leopard?
Is it a leopard?
Is it leopard?
The answer isn't leopard. It's nice to know our ideas are catching on, isn't it?
I chose not to include all the replies from my friend Richard, who just kind of bombarded me with in-jokes from our childhood and repeating the words jam and Martin. We did have 2 correct answers sent in. One was a regular DM sent to our Twitter account by Mr. Stuart Leatherland, who we have had on the podcast recently, and the other was this lovely message from Feathered Menace, so called because she has feathers and is a menace.
Hello, it's Nikki here from Nikki and Bunsey. I'm here with our daughter, who wants to be known as Feathered Menace.
Because I'm a menace.
Because she's a menace.
And I have feathers.
On Monday, I planted a
Saturday.
How did you know that so quickly?
I can read minds.
You cannot read minds.
I'm a bird.
Seriously, have you just... Did you just memorise it from Nightmare?
Yeah. Oh, that's the truth. I did. On Monday, Saturday.
I love her imagination, by the way. The answer from Nicky and Bunty's daughter. No time wasted with little things like hearing the question. That is how a Dungeoneer should be. We've got to get her onto an episode of Nightmare for real.
But of course, she'd be able to complete the quest really easily because she can read minds.
Clearly, that puts the non-player characters at a huge disadvantage.
So today we're rejoining Julian, Vaughan, Becca and Mary from Banbury. And as mentioned in last week's episode, Dungeoneer Julian now goes by the name of Jason Carl and is a TV presenter, actor and creative producer. To avoid confusion, we will be referring to him as Julian when we talk about the episode.
Which makes sense because there was no such person as Jason Carl at the time.
And now time turns to Recording Like Burns. Time out is gone. The podcast is on.
Welcome, watchers. Sit and stare at daring deeds within my lair. Treguard salutes you. The dungeon is phased for adventuring. A quest is now in progress. So if you like legends, then here's the latest. Remember Jamie's men from York's? Well, they're not with us now, because although they found a monkish chum, they strolled when they perhaps should run, and missed a spell which could have saved them when Ariadne enslaved them. Now, here's a brand new Dungeoneer. It's Julian from Oxfordshire. These chums have made old Olgarth sore. They've earned themselves a perfect score. Now, will they waste it? Will they use it? Watch and learn. We'll now peruse it.
So now we've got the Dungeon Ditty, and straight off the bat, there's an awful virtual rhyme.
Yes, it's the reverse of the usual pattern here. They usually start okay and then start to lose heart quite quickly. But here it breaks down straight out of the block. But then it actually recovers quite well. But unfortunately, it's too late by then. Yorks and because do not rhyme. End of. No arguments. Universe explodes there. Fail.
I do like saved them and enslaved them.
I also don't mind Dungeoneer in Oxfordshire. I think that's actually quite a neat rhyme. But it's too late. I'm sorry, Yorks and because is irredeemable. As soon as you've done that, the whole thing is just ruined.
So marks out of 10 for the Dungeon Ditty.
Oh, all right, let's be generous. -2.
We rejoin Julian and the team in the level 1 clue room. On the table are a quill and an ink pot, a dagger, and a non-sentient key.
Yay! No Casper! Hey! Party time!
Do you know what? Even though I know that Casper doesn't appear again until later on in Series 2, I still get a little bit of anxiety every time I see a key on the table.
I get the shudders every time. No, please. No, don't pick it up. Don't touch it, please.
They've just got a perfect score, and Granitas tells them that their quest is to find the talisman. He also tells them that the pen is mightier than the sword. As they have scored 3 out of 3, they have earned the right to command the wall monster. Doing so earns them the clue that locked doors await them and that they should beware the warrior of wheels and springs. Their team take the key and the quill.
No prizes for guessing which guard awaits them later in level 1.
Walk forward.
Where am I? You're in the room. In front of you and to your right there is a door, and directly in front of you there are 2 eyes.
Here's a stranger to the dungeon.
It's the snake room, but this time it's that weird green face thing that sort of blinks occasionally, but otherwise does absolutely nothing. Doesn't even turn its head or shrug it or anything. It just sits there staring straight ahead. Treguard claims that it's a stranger to the dungeon. This is just nonsense because we've seen it before. But what the point of it is, no one has ever been able to explain.
I sometimes think that maybe they mixed up some of the names for the monsters because this looks much more like a cross between a toad and a crocodile than the toadadile does.
Yeah, it lacks the energy and mobility of a toad. I don't associate toads with just sitting still. They usually leap around a bit. Mind you, the toadadile in the corridor of the catacomb doesn't exactly leap around very much either.
I don't associate toads with floating in midair.
This too, yeah. I'm not sure. I just don't know. The problem with this monster is it's so innately uninteresting. I just don't care what it's called. It just doesn't do anything. It's just a pair of eyes, and that's it.
It doesn't seem to pose any threat. However, the entity that follows could prove fatal.
Beware the mindless threat of the mechanical warrior.
door quick.
So we know from correspondence with Dungeoneer Julian, the automaton actually did cause him some anxiety.
He was actually quite afraid of this one, apparently. I remember he did an interview with Nightmare.com, must be getting on to 20 years ago now, and he said in that it was a situation he didn't feel particularly in control, which was quite rare in the quest. He usually felt very in control of the situation.
That shows as well.
He was so dependent on the guidance from the team that he was starting to feel slightly powerless and slightly scared. There's one occasion when the automaton was so close behind him, the flail actually touches his shoulder.
Yeah, I bet he must have jumped out of his skin.
Yeah, it must have been very scary.
The automaton follows close behind Julian, as we said, too close, because it's almost upon him the moment it appears on the screen. Bizarrely, the team instruct him to turn left and then walk forwards towards the wall, but I think this might have been a case of a little bit of panic.
I think it's one of those, sorry, I meant right. Sorry. No. At least there wasn't a gigantic gaping hole straight to his left for them to guide him into. Imagine a bunch of advisors doing something to a dungeoneer like that.
Can you imagine?
It'll never happen.
Never happen. Having had this little bit of panic, though, they do regain their composure quite quickly, and they do carry on moving him to the left because at least that will get him out of the way of the automaton.
Oh, yeah, there's no point in stopping and turning around at that point. They've committed to that path. Get as far away from the automaton as it can take them and then work their way out.
Where am I? Walk forward.
Not
one
safe
step.
yet, team. This
Stop.
chamber's
Turn
mine.
left.
Fuse is
Stop.
on.
There's a locked door that requires the use of a key that Julian is holding, but other than that... Bum, 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 room. Be fast on your feet before your life was to bleach. Bum, room. Bum, 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 room.
Walk forward. Where am I? You're in a room which looks like a kitchen. There are two doors on the opposite side, and there's a lady standing in the middle of the room.
Hello, stranger. What a lucky thing for you. You just dropped in. I just finished baking this lovely pie. And if you come over here, you can help yourself to a great big slice.
I do think we have to give Audrey Jenkins some credit here, though.
Yeah, she does well in this scene, but it's probably because she's not actually playing Gretel for real here. She's playing a sinister person pretending to be Gretel, which allows her to spread her acting chops a bit. She's not a bad actress, Audrey Jenkinson, and I need to emphasise that. It's just Gretel is an awful role.
So, to set the scene, Julian arrives in the kitchen and is addressed by Gretel, who is holding a pie. Treguard points out it's odd that she would greet Julian with, "Hello, stranger," especially since they met earlier. But I think the big clue that something is up is the slurping sound of the pronunciation of the word slice.
It's very subtle, isn't it? You really had to concentrate to pick up on that.
Sensing foul is afoot, the team call it out.
Spellcasting. FOUL. Get him out of there.
Yeah.
What's the matter? Don't you like my pie?
Matron, take them away!
Mildred, cease at once! This time you've been found out. That was a useful little spell, team, and it probably saved you from a poisonous fate.
Treguard verbally chastises Mildred for attempting to pull the wool over his eyes once again, and Mildred's reaction is to shake her fist at the sky and shout,
I've been foiled again!
in the manner of a Saturday morning cartoon villain.
Yeah.
It really is very Skeletor, isn't it?
I was thinking Megatron, but yeah.
I'll get you next time, Gadget.
Oh, yeah. I'll get you next time, Gadget.
That's brilliant.
Hello, Julian. Mildred. Julian, has Mildred been using my shape again?
Yes.
I told you, Mildred, it's not nice using other people's shapes.
With Mildred gone, Gretel tells Julian that he's going to have to be more careful as there are much trickier things ahead. She indicates that the wellway is through the right-hand door, and as she does so, the unmistakable whirring of the automaton can be heard.
This is the point where actually the team doesn't panic particularly, but Gretel does, and that
Yeah.
that very nearly disrupts their manoeuvring. In fact, she does disrupt their manoeuvring because she keeps on trying to point Julian at the wrong door. So I remember rewatch this a few. It wasn't the first time I'd seen it, and I remember actually calling out at the screen, "Gretel, you can stop helping the automaton now."
Oh my goodness, Julian, you didn't leave the automaton in here. Quick, give me your arm and I'll get you out. Oh no, you better go on. Quickly, Julian, that way. I'll be okay. It's you he's after. That way, Julian, walk forward.
Go on.
Oh my goodness.
Where am I? You're in a small room. In the top left-hand corner, there is a well. There's nothing else in the room.
Sometimes when there's unused clue objects, I wonder if there was ever actually a plan for them. Or is it just because you have to take 2 objects?
I'm pretty sure there isn't. I'm pretty sure that when trying to plot out the level, Tim Chard probably did have something vague in mind for it, but I think a lot of the time he just forgot. That's the honest impression I get. I honestly just don't think there was in the end that he remembered to write in what the quill was for.
So I messaged Jason about the quill just out of curiosity, and this is what he said. The way it worked was that if we had made alternative decisions which might have presented us with other challenges, then this would perhaps have been needed. As it is, we avoided that. A lot of it was kind of organic, i.e. the producer decided what should happen next based on what the team did, and therefore sometimes things were apparently irrelevant but might not have been. So there you have it. Perhaps Nightmare wasn't quite as linear as we once thought. For the most part, the efficiency of this team is quite brilliant. There are a few occasions when they have trouble with manoeuvring. We know they've put in a lot of practice, and it does show in scenes like this.
Yeah, they found their rhythm now, and they also don't need as much prompting as they did initially. It's actually been quite a rapid improvement through the first level. You think back to the first couple of rooms, they got burns in the fire cave by the salamander's head. So they've improved very rapidly, and that there are things that go wrong in level 2, but are not really their fault.
Where am I? You're in a small room. In front of you, there are 5 doors along the back wall. There's nothing else in the room.
They're each all the doors are numbered.
Let's give kudos to Julian for a spectacular display of knee-bending acting. This is probably the best attempt at making it look like you really are buckling at the knees after falling from great heights that we've ever seen in Nightmare. And he lands in the 5-door chamber, and this time the doors are instead numbered 1 to 5. And just as the team are about to try and figure out what to do...
Oh, hello, Julian!
Yeah, this is weird because it does seem like a scene that was written for Folly.
Yeah, it does. It does. I'm not saying it necessarily would have been any better if it was, but it couldn't have been any worse. Gretel says that she thinks it's silly how Dungeoneers blunder about the place. Look who's talking. Who needed a Dungeoneer to rescue her from Mogdred a few weeks ago? It's not her fault, though, if something happens to them. Well, it would have been if something had happened to Mark Wixon a few weeks ago. So, in order to help the team choose which door to take, she recites a word puzzle.
One way to go where going is best. One door that's safest on this quest. Just one to choose or a life to lose. But for goodness sake, don't choose the rest.
That's a very good... That's actually a pretty good... For a bloke, that's a pretty good impression of Gretel. I'm impressed with that, yeah. She says she's going to close her eyes and count to 100 until he's gone because she doesn't like to see people make mistakes, especially fatal ones.
Maybe Julian should just do that himself. Just count to 100 until she's gone.
That's a wonderful idea. I tried it on a number of occasions, but she keeps coming back though. So they choose door number 1, and shock of all shocks, it proves to be right.
Turn to right. Walk forward.
Where am I now? You're in a quite large room. There are 3 things on the floor. Like clockwork, rotating. You're on a still part of it. In front of you, there is a
Caution, team, these are the mills of doom. The center of each cog is safe, but Julian must risk the teeth to exit. Hurry, but guide him with care. One slip here, and he's mincemeat.
So the Mills of Doom are a quite spectacular looking timing puzzle. Julian's very keen to know exactly what's going on, where he's going, and how many steps he should take. And it is great to see a Dungeoneer taking an active team role, But at this point, it's almost a hindrance, as it slows him down when life force is running low.
It's not good because when your life force clock is always on red, but because at the moment they've got a linear life force clock, they can't keep recycling the same bit of animation. So when they had the walking figure life force clock in later seasons, they could just keep on making it repeat the steps motion. Here, the only way they can accommodate is to slow the clock down, and it starts moving at about 1 frame every 2 seconds. It really, really does not help the tension of the scene at all.
It's not the only thing that slows down in this scene, though, is it?
It doesn't, no. This is a point I've made before. The Mills of Doom has quite a lot of actual genuine CGI, by the standards of the time, I should stress. It has quite a lot of actual genuine CGI graphics in the animation. Every time it appears, it definitely seems to overwhelm the computer's RAM, because by the end of the scene, the backgrounds animations have slowed down ludicrously. The pendulum is taking just an age to reach the side and then start swinging backwards.
Yeah, and it is more obvious in this scene, assumingly because Julian just takes so long.
Yeah, he keeps on checking everything, which he probably doesn't need to. He can show a little bit more trust, shall we say. Anyway, he makes it to the bottle of milk on the central cog, and obviously that goes straight into the knapsack. Does this mean that the knapsack actually consumes the glass of the bottle along with the milk? And does that mean that sand is good for life force health?
Could be.
Just a thought. There are some rather weird food items that get included in season 2, and this is definitely one of them.
So walk forward. Should I just keep going?
Yes. Yeah, until we say stop.
Where am I now? You're in a small room. To your right and further up, there's a sort of ghost. And on the left, there's a flat platform with something on it.
With a
Small
table
chair.
with some more milk.
A wraith here, team, and I doubt that it's friendly. There's something else, too. But contact with this cold one will cost Julian dearly in life force.
Cedric's chamber sans Cedric. In his place is the ghostly apparition of a wraith, and on the block is what appears to be some kind of bottled potion. As Julian begins to move, so too does the wraith, and he manages to avoid it and make it to the bottle. He takes it in hand and exits the chamber.
Not impressed with Treguard's badgering of the team in this room, and indeed in the next one.
Yeah.
It seems to be trying to force a situation that the team then goes and gets blamed for. It's a situation that has clearly been written, and it clearly has to happen for the plot to work, but it takes away any sense of the team having a decision of their own.
Because especially in the next room, he really is badgering them.
He is. He shouldn't be doing that, really, should he? He's supposed to be the neutral, impartial umpire. They're supposed to make the decisions on whether they want to open the bottle or the flagon or whatever it is.
Yeah, I think this is the scene that Amy Davies was talking about when we had her on a while back.
I think so, yes. Also, there's a more fundamental problem, though, which is not only does it drive the plot in a particular direction that the team may not necessarily have wanted to go in, it also changes the nature of the gameplay throughout level 2 here, to the point where it's an exaggeration to say that it becomes just a straightforward along for the ride, easy ride for the team, but it is easier than other teams recently have had, because the clue objects are basically replaced by a non-player character who does half the level for them.
I would somewhat disagree with that, because it's not the first time it's happened. It's usually Cedric.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Don't get me wrong, but I find teams where that happens tend to do better than teams when they have to do everything on their own initiative, which does suggest that it is making life easier when it happens. And the fact that it's happened before, I'm not disputing. It's happened before. That doesn't make it right, though. If you're going to do that for this team, you've got to do it for every team, surely, or you've got to do it for nobody. Look at Season 1, the Team 6 Season 1. They had hardly any challenges of their own in Level 2, therefore they got to Level 3. Other teams in Season 1 didn't get those advantages, so they didn't get to Level 3. That was that sort of thing. It's not fair, I think, is the point I'm making.
I do think this team are good enough that they would have got through without the help, but I guess we'll never know.
That's the thing, we won't.
So we'll move on to the Level 2 clue room, which is where all the badgering takes place.
That's it. Walk forward. Just as quick as possible. Keep going. Okay, go on.
Where am I now?
Time, surely, to investigate that which you risked so much for.
The Level 2 clue room at last, and being the careful team that they are, they use the banister. Treguard is really keen that they investigate the bottle.
What of the one you're carrying?
Like, really keen. that they investigate the bottle.
Shall I put it down?
Investigate it.
Well,
Investigate
have a look at it.
Just have a look
See
at
what it is.
I think the word insistent is probably closer to the truth than keen.
Yeah.
He's strident on the matter.
And of course, when they do...
Put the bottle down, Julian.
Put it
Distract
down.
release.
Put it down.
Get him out.
Put it on the table.
Quickly,
Please.
get him
Turn to
out.
your right.
Get him
Turn to
out.
your right. Walk forward.
Oh my God! Panic!
There was no such thing as trolling back in the 1980s, but if there was, this is it.
If they did this nowadays, they'd have to put an epilepsy warning on it.
They probably would, yeah. I don't remember for sure, but I'm fairly sure that some of the later episodes of Nightmare, CITV presenters did mention beforehand warnings about flashing lights. I don't think they did in the early seasons, though.
That was after the whole thing with Nintendo where some kid had an epileptic seizure whilst playing Super Mario. God, that was blown out of proportion.
A bit, but at the same time, it is best to have a warning. The team are basically left in a position where they've got no choice but to leave the clue room without any clue objects, and so therefore they are stuck on a very, very specific and very linear path in which they can't really affect anything very much until just about the end of the level.
Turn to your... Keep forward. Keep going.
Stop.
Turn to your right. Side steps. Just go right. Go on, carry on forward.
Hurry.
Turn to your left. Go forward.
Where am I? You're in the room and there's some life force energy restorer on your right.
The team have made it to the Hall of Folly, often considered to be the halfway point of a successful quest. There's a sprite of energy here which is sorely needed after the last room, but the team don't half seem to make a meal out of getting it. Looking back at it, I don't think that's entirely their fault.
No, I don't. It's a problem with the superimposition of the sprig on the screen. It doesn't matter what position you stand on the screen; it's always going to appear nearer to the screen than you are. So it becomes very difficult to judge exactly where you're supposed to stand. The way you get round it is rather than sort of zigzagging across, trying to brush it as you pass it. Just walk in a straight line towards it, and it's easy for the producer to say, right, you touched it.
So one advisor keeps asking Julian if he can see it, despite his cohorts repeatedly pointing out it's obviously just a graphic on a screen.
Can you see a green sprite? No. Turn to your... Stop. Turn to your left. Walk forward. Right. Can you see it?
No,
Stop.
I can't see it.
Turn to your right.
Plants really genuinely do look just like that in the real world.
Yeah. By the time Merlin runs into the room, Julian is facing in totally the wrong direction.
Well, what a fine mess you've got yourself into. Turn round, let's have a look at you. Where are you? There you are. It is Julian, isn't it?
Yes.
Good, Julian. So it is.
Merlin said, I don't suppose it was your fault, really. I was like, too right? It bloody wasn't their fault. It's Treguard's fault.
He doesn't even mention Treguard, does he?
No.
I'm afraid that, as I've been saying, the whole sequence does feel very forced and very, very unnatural. And it's doing something different, I suppose, but I don't think it really fits Nightmare. It's rather reducing the role of the player.
I still think to suggest that Julian's team had an easy run through level 2 would be false.
It's an overstatement. A lot of people have said down the years that they were helped enormously. There is something in that. They did get some help that other teams didn't in both level 2 and level 3. But it wasn't a stroll in the park, though. Even in this scene, they've still got to get the riddles right. So there's still plenty of elements of challenge there.
Merlin asks Julian what he needs from him. The team take this too specifically and discuss requesting spells until Treguard just tells them to just ask for help.
Never be afraid to ask for help, Julian. It can be found in the most unexpected places. Mind you, I'm not going to help you for nothing. That wouldn't do any good at all, really. No, you're going to have to earn it. Now, listen to me carefully, Julian.
Merlin does seem to have a preoccupation with killing today.
He does, doesn't he? Yes, it seems to be the theme. What did curiosity kill? The cat, as everyone knows. Who killed Cock Robin? Sparrow. They got both of those right. They actually got the third one wrong, and I'm surprised. I thought this was the easiest of the lot. Paris killed Achilles. But where did his arrow strike?
It's only easy if you know the answer.
They say the eye, which means they're probably confusing Achilles with King Harold Godwinson, who died at the Battle of Hastings.
Harold with his hat in his hand. Was it in the eye with an arrow?
But of course, the correct answer is heel, because that's where we get the phrase Achilles heel. The team got 2 out of 3, and Merlin decides that's adequate. So he gives them the greatest gift of all.
Folly! Oh, no. Come on, not too much. much laughter, Folly, not too much. We don't want to be too generous, do we?
Oh, shit!
Is it a prize or a punishment?
So Folly enters the hall of him.
So, by the way, it's the only time Folly is ever seen in the hall that's named the same as him. I don't know why that is. He also guides Julian out of the exit to the right, which teams normally don't use.
Merlin starts lamenting about how exhausting all this magic is, despite not actually having performed any magic in this episode.
Well, he managed to remember something. That seems like magic. He didn't forget anything in the entire scene. Folly takes Julian by the arm and leads him out.
Hello, Julian. My name is Folly. Folly is my name, and Folly is my mate.
Where are we now?
Heart and diamond, ace and juice. Old Gumboyle's been on the dungeon juice.
Level 6! Oh, God, no, can't be 6. Where am I?
Well, this is where the teams start for a while to be spectators rather than players.
It does have some use later on.
Yeah, but it also means that when they do solve the issue later on, it's actually Folly who's figured it out for them, and they're just copying him.
It's not that much different from getting a clue from a war monster.
Well, yeah, but with a clue, you've got to figure out what it means. Basically, Folly just shows them what to do here. They arrive at the Vale of Mogdred.
So when Gumball asks, "Where am I?" how tempting do you think it was to say, "You're in a room"?
It must have been almost irresistible. If you actually look closely at Gumboyle during the close-ups in this scene, there is something extremely odd about the chroma key effects. If you actually look really closely, you can see there's this really fizzy, fiery distortion effects on his helmet. One of the colours taken out of the spectrum, it really does affect everything else.
But anyway, have a listen to this.
Halt! Intruder! The piss! The passion! The push off or you perish!
Now, is it just me, or did Gumboyle just tell Julian to piss off?
I think Edmund Dane was on the brink of saying piss off. He suddenly realised he got himself into the drunk mindset. Doesn't Nightmare do an inappropriately large number of jokes about drunkenness for a kids' programme?
Folly tells Julian to leave this to him, and he steps into the line of fire.
Leave this to me, Julian. Hail, O intoxicated one. If it's the password you want, we haven't got it. But what we have got, and we could give to you, is a sorcerer's stone.
Sausage's stone? You never. Give us a look then.
All right. But just remember that these rare and valuable stones are completely invisible to all but the cleverest people. And I have heard that really thick cloth heads can't even feel them.
You never. Give us a look then.
There you are. A sorcerer's stone.
Oh, it's beautiful.
And what's more, in the absence of the password, it's yours. Hold out your hand. There.
God. Thanks, friend. Pass, friend. Safe passage.
Come on, Julian. Give me your hand. Careful you don't fall down there. Come on. I do hope you and your friends are learning from all this. Bye!
Now, I know you have issues with this scene, but I actually quite like it.
Standing on its own, it is actually very entertaining, and it's one of Alec Westwood's best moments as Folly. I have issues with the effect it has on the gameplay. It's an entertaining scene, but it's one of those fundamentals of Nightmare. When you've got two non-player characters on the screen, it usually means the team gets sidelined. You think about Folly and his showdown with Cedric late in Season 1. The team didn't really have to do anything to beat Cedric because Folly did it for them. The team don't really have to do anything to beat Gumball because Folly's done it for them. They have to do a little bit later on to beat somebody else, but again, they're just copying what Folly told them to do. It's not a problem with the scene, it's a problem with the effect it has on the gameplay. Basically, this is just the Emperor's New Clothes, of course, isn't it? With different parameters. My favourite bit of the scene is the bit where Folly holds out the Sorcerer's Stone over the edge of the bridge. Gumboyle leans towards it, fixated on this thing he can't even see. Folly then snatches his hand away, and Gumboyle can see into the distance down below just how far. Oh my God! I'm really high up here.
Where are we now?
Lights! It's a totodile! Oh, quick, Julian. I'll try to hold it back while your friends guide you out. Good luck.
Oh, yes, it's the great court of the catacombs. But it disappoints time after time. Treguard talks it up, but it just ain't got the stuff. And yes, that was a virtual ride.
I still think it's unfair to say that Folly guided them through most of level 2.
I didn't. He only guided them through 2 rooms.
I still think he didn't do that much more than Cedric's done in previous quests. But as you say, some teams didn't get that at all.
It was only the 2 rooms, but he basically got them through the only 2 serious obstacles they had to face in level 2, because the solution was the same both times. That's where the objection lies, that other teams had a much rougher ride in level 2. And it's true. As good as Julian's team are, I wouldn't say they're any better than Jamie's team, but Jamie's team had a really rough ride in level 2, and I think a very unfair ride in level 2. So when you compare their level 2 with Julian's, it's like night and day. They couldn't be further apart, even though they've got a lot of the same architecture in them. There is an issue here that does have to be voiced. Not in any way trying to wind Jason Carl up. I know he'll be listening. But there is a genuine fairness issue there. Really, it's not their fault. It's not the team's fault. I'm stressed that it's not the team's fault. They're not doing anything wrong here. They're playing the hand they're dealt. But the other teams were dealt a much rougher hand.
The Totodile is guarding the corridor today, and it seems a lot clearer this time around, although that might be due to the video quality of the copy we're using. Folly stays behind to hold it back whilst the team guide Julian out.
Yeah, as with Cedric on the previous quest, there is no reason for the companion to be left behind at all. It looked at least somewhat convincing when Cedric was standing there swinging his quarterstaff at it. It looks utterly pathetic when Folly sort of dances around at the far end of the corridor waving his folderol in the face of the Totodile. If the Totodile moved, it would have him for breakfast within seconds. So, because it can't, it just carries on running backwards and forwards from side to side, waving the folderol like it's a fist. Come and have a go if you think you're hard enough, but don't, please don't really.
Where am I now? You're in a small room. In the middle of it, there is part of the talisman, and at the back of the room there are 2 doors.
Sadly, you seem to have lost Folly, team, but you do seem to have discovered something of value.
Julian collects the talisman piece, and Treguard congratulates them on acquiring 1 piece of their quest. However, he informs them that all the pieces must be united for them to be successful. Life force is low, and they move on to the next chamber.
Where am I now? You're in a small room. In front of you is a well and a man standing on it with a club, and to your left there is some life force restorer.
Careful, team, for you're unarmed, but this plant contains the energy Julian needs.
Julian is on the precipice of level 3. He collects the Sprite of Energy, and Olaf speaks up.
Lootings and pillagings, lootings and pillagings. My friend, have you any lootings for Olaf? If no lootings, then I be thumping you on the head. Sorry, but the orders is the orders.
Now, before we go anywhere else, I wish to refer you back to something from the previous episode where I pointed out that Julian's teammates were laughing when Julian claims that he always tells the truth. Here we have on-screen televisualized evidence that he's lying. No offense, Jason Carl.
I'm just going to make that a t-shirt, with his permission, maybe. No offence, Jason Carl.
Oh dear, that's going to replace leopard as the show's main catchphrase.
At least it might replace I've never seen the Untouchables. With nothing to bargain with, the team decide to trick Olaf the same way that Folly tricked Gumboil.
I have the Sorcerer's Stone.
What is Sorcerer's Stone?
Magical object.
Magical object? Show to Olaf, show to Olaf.
Go forward. Hold it out.
I can't see it.
Only stupid people can't see it.
Oh, well, in that case, give to Olaf. Give.
Also feeling.
Yes. Oh, it's very beautiful. Go. You go past her.
They do it by lying.
He only lies under instructions from his teammates.
Okay, so Vaughan, Becca and Mary are liars. And Julian hangs around with them at all times. What does that say about him? Jason Carl, for shame! For shame! No offence, Jason Carl. You're leaving these bits in, aren't you?
Yeah, the opinions of Martin O'Doney do not necessarily reflect the opinions of others at night.
You cowards!
That's Martin O'Doney, care of Temporal Discussion. Email.
Olaf is fooled into believing that he can see and feel a Sorcerer's Stone and lets Julian pass. But Olaf isn't quite as stupid as a drunken gumboil and begins to realise that he's been duped just as Julian is climbing into the well.
I think they be making Danish bacon of Olaf.
I rather like that line, even though, again, it's the idiot Scandinavian stereotype again, but it is rather a good line, that.
Where am I now?
You're in a small room. In front of you there is a large face. And on the back wall there's one door, and to the left of you there's another door.
And listen, team, this is a lucky break. The creature here is a gargoyle, but not dangerous in this state. Gargoyles only turn nasty when they start turning blue. Julian can command him to speak, for gargoyles are sometimes a useful source of information.
We got another level 3 team, everybody!
Yay!
Third of the year. Third of the year, the fourth overall to get to level 3. Julian lands in the gargoyle's chamber. He doesn't even have to flatter the gargoyle to get him into a good mood. So all Julian has to do is call out, "I command you," and the gargoyle gives him some invaluable clue information.
I command you.
Testing. 1, 2, 3, 4. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. It's not so bright to take the right. The left will only mean a fright. What's round and hard and fairly dense is just the thing for your defense. Oh dear, it's a strain to talk to you, but too much talking turns me blue.
Think back to Team 3 of Season 2, the team from Merseyside. They didn't get a clue beforehand, and that meant they ended up picking up the wrong object from the clue room. This clue gives an absolutely certain idea of what needs to be taken from the clue room. Again, I'm not saying they're getting a free ride, they're not.
The gargoyle's mood darkens and he begins to turn blue. The team get Julian out whilst they still can, guiding him through the door on the left.
Quickly, let
Walk forward. Stop. Go left. Walk forward.
Where am I now?
You're in a small room. Near the middle of the room there's part of the talisman, and in the left-hand corner of the room there are a lot of objects and some bones.
Things.
The piece may be vital, but hurry. Cavern whites abound on level 3. They're blind and hunt by smell.
But no sooner does Julian start moving than the heffalumps begin to waddle in. Julian collects the talisman piece and exits with no fuss.
As with the previous level talisman piece, not really a lot to add, except that once again the Cavern Whites don't really come across as particularly threatening.
Walk forward.
Now where am I?
You're at the top of some stairs. In the middle of the room there's a table with a lot of objects on it.
They enter the level 2 clue room. Julian has made it pretty much 5/6 of the way through the dungeon now. On the table, we have a piece of meat, a bag of salt, a shield, and a crossbow.
Is that the same crossbow as from before? That really cool William Tell one? I'm not sure.
I think it is. Actually, no, it may be a bit larger. Julian is halfway down the stairs when he trips and falls. The helmet falls off and blood spurts out of a gaping wound on the top of his head, and then Julian lies on the floor, motionless. The advisors are in disarray. Treguard is stood there in complete shock as Tim Child can be heard shouting, "Hugo, say something!" A crew member runs onto the set and puts his hand over the lens, and the footage cuts to the Anglia Knight logo with the words "Technical difficulties, please stand by," and blazed below it. Then it fades to black, and there is nothing. It's what might have happened, but instead we get...
Warning, team, time turns, even in level 3. Temporal disruption is now approaching. dear. We've been disrupted again. Well, never mind. I'm sure you can wait, and you'll have to find out what happens to Julian and his friends. Farewell, watchers. Join us again soon for Nightmare. If you dare to, that is.
In this sign-off, it does appear that Hugo's eyebrows are doing the bulk of the acting.
Yes, they're very, very gifted, Hugo's eyebrows. They receive offers for lots of work that Hugo misses out on. The Actors Guild has often said to Hugo's eyebrows, have you ever considered working without Hugo? But they say, well, we feel kind of attached to him.
I hear one of them is up for the main role in the Very Hungry Caterpillar movie.
Yeah, unfortunately, there's some kind of contract issue over whether it's allowed to appear without the other one. There's some kind of partnership arrangement on Actors Guild.
I held it for so long.
My ability to play along with your stupid jokes it takes some doing, but I'm able to improvise off the top of my head so well. Anyway.
So it's an interesting episode.
It is. It's very rare that it isn't, it should be said.
It's very watchable, and part of that is the charisma of the team as well.
How much of a role the team are playing is kind of open to debate, isn't it?
Well, fully they did have to earn his help.
Yeah, I will give it that. It's not a bad episode, but I do have issues with what it does to the gameplay.
But again, it's not really down to the team, it's just the way the episode has been written.
I think so, yeah. Because they're doing something different with the characters, that adds to the interest, but at the same time, it sort of detracts from the sport, so to speak.
It's kind of catch-22, really, isn't it? You're trying to make good television, but it takes away from the gameplay.
Yeah, so that is always a difficulty. So you can certainly sympathise, but at the same time, when they try something different, you do have to stand back and ask yourself, well, did it work or didn't it? And I would have to say probably not. I don't think it's a good idea to basically put a non-player character in and get them to sort of neutralise a quarter of the level for the Dungeoneer. The Dungeoneer has still got to have a proactive role at these points.
Okay, that's it for this episode. You can follow us on Twitter. We're at Nightmare Pod. If you want to support the podcast, we're Nightmare Pod on Patreon and Ko-fi. Speaking of Patreon, here's a shout out to Keeper of the Book of Quests, David N. Rabbit.
Is it Leopard?
Yes, David actually is an avid Doom modder and has done a level that has elements of Nightmare.
Really?
Yeah, it's on the 40 Monsters Challenge. It's level 36, the library. It's like a cross between Nightmare and the Crystal Maze. There's some very Crystal Maze-y challenges in it, but there's also a causeway and play your cards right.
Oh, very good. Okay, yeah.
We'd also like to mention advisor Peter Pulsford and Dungeoneer David Thompson. You can support us on Patreon at Dungeoneer level or above to get your name mentioned in the podcast. Our website is nightmarepod.co.uk and you can email us at podcast@nightmarepod.co.uk. And remember, don't have nightmares.
Just watch them instead.